When you look at COVID rearing its ugly head again, just in the last couple of hours, the Ottawa Senators have had to shut down for a week. Whole team's vaccinated. They still had 10 different players test positive. You mentioned Mika Fitzpatrick, Ben Roethlisberger, Nick Chubb, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the list is becoming fairly substantial of players testing positive. How nervous are you now going forward from an odds maker perspective about the other shoe proverbially dropping? Does it make more sense to wait till later in the week some to bet now because so many guys are going to be announced out with COVID-related issues?
It's definitely getting to be more challenging. From a handicapping side, it's taking on a 2020 feel where most of my positions would come in later in the week. Now, the one thing I will say that typically most of my portfolio when it comes to weekend investments in the NFL is betting games under the total. So more often than not, some of these key absences, especially to offensive players, only strengthen some of those positions. So I'm not as concerned there. But when it comes to betting sides, I don't think it's as simple as the early bird gets the worm like we've grown accustomed to, because you don't know who's going to pop up on that injury list or the COVID reserve list like we saw Saturday night. I mean, you watch, all of a sudden Big Ben's there. That number drops from the Steelers, an 8.5 point favorite, down to that 5.5, 6 range. I know a lot of people in some of the big Survivor contests really didn't have a chance to change their entry after that. You saw that total come down. So you do have to be cognizant of everything that's going on. It's just another variable that you add into the handicapping equation. I mean, this business is never easy to begin with, and this is yet another challenge that you'll have to try and encounter. One thing I will say for the Ottawa Senators situation, not to go off on a hockey tangent, it's interesting that Ottawa had a bunch of guys that were on their reserve list. They actually asked the league for a salary cap exemption to try and call guys up. The league said no, and suddenly Ottawa canceled their games. So I think that's as much politicking as anything else. And, theoretically, Ottawa probably shouldn't have been playing over the weekend. But when you had two teams from Western Canada come in, or at least one in Calgary and the LA Kings, they figured, let's get those games out of the way because the schedule is not going to allow us to shoehorn them in later. Now they can shut things down for a little bit against Eastern Conference opponents. But, yep, it's something we're going to have to watch, especially as we get closer to the holidays.